Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 85. So every now and then, an article gets by your boy. And tonight, that's the case. There's an article from December 2nd that has to do with the Victim Child Act in New York City. And it's about Virginia Roberts, who is going to use that Child Victims Act against Alan Dershowitz to go after him. And with the news being so slow today, I thought we'd add this article to our catalog and give ourselves a little bit more context about this whole entire Virginia Roberts, Alan Dershowitz situation, because I don't think enough spotlight is put on to Alan Dershowitz by the media. I think everybody's really scared of Alan Dershowitz because he's such a high-profile attorney, and they're scared that he'll ruin them financially and come after them, and but at the end of the day, you can't be worried about that stuff as a journalist, right? If the evidence leads you somewhere, you have to report it. That's what your people are expecting. That's what your readers are expecting. That's what your listeners are expecting. And that's the right thing to do. Instead, you have a lot of these journalists who go after Andrew hard as hell, go after everybody else hard as hell, but not a guy like Alan Dershowitz. What are you scared of? Why does the Crypt Keeper scare you? Alan Dershowitz doesn't inspire any fear in my heart, not one single bit. Sure, he's a great lawyer, there's no doubt about it, and sure, he could litigate you 5 ways till Sunday. But that does not mean that he gets off the hook for what he has done. That does not mean he does not get called out for his enabling of Jeffrey Epstein. That does not mean he does not get called out for his just general disgustingness in the way he's handled this whole entire situation. The whole defaming of Virginia Roberts every chance he gets, calling her all sorts of disgusting names that, at the end of the day, even if you weren't involved with Jeffrey Epstein, even if you did not do what she said you have done, you should show a little bit of empathy, show a little respect, a little decorum. You're this high-profile Harvard guy. And you're running around, you're trashing her in interviews so bad that the hosts have to stop you in the middle of your trashing of her? I mean, come on, Dershowitz. Come on, Alan D. Nobody's worried about you, all right? You're just another one of these guys who will litigate until the wheels come off, and that just frightens people. But I really don't care. At the end of the day, we're just going on what these articles have to say. And if Alan Dershowitz wasn't involved with Virginia Roberts, why would she say that? Why would she bring up Alan Dershowitz of all people? She could have brought up Bill Clinton. She could have named Donald Trump. She could have named so many more high-profile people than Alan Dershowitz. If Dershowitz was not involved, why did Virginia Roberts even bring him up? Well, it is my opinion that Dershowitz definitely was involved. And what Virginia Roberts said he did to her, I believe her. And it's up to Alan Dershowitz to defend these claims now. He says he has all this evidence, he has receipts, and he has all these different, records and blah, 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 blah. But nobody has seen any of that stuff. It's all just his fat mouth running again. Just yap, 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 yap. Well, I got to tell you something, Mr. Dershowitz. You're not fooling anybody. We know you received those massages, but it's okay though, right? Because you didn't take off your underwear. You're just a sick, 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 sick circle of people, folks. Just a very sick circle of people. All right. Virginia Roberts' attorney Charles Cooper said she would likely take advantage of the new law that allows victims of child sex abuse to sue their alleged abusers. Roberts has sued Dershowitz for defamation, charging that the noted Harvard law professor smeared her name by calling her a liar. And good for her. It's nice to see Dershowitz get a little bit of his own medicine for once, right? Nobody wants to sue Alan Dershowitz for the most part. They're scared of his litigation ability. Well, Virginia Roberts don't give two shits. She knows she was wronged. She knows she was abused. And this predator is being called out on the carpet. So, good for her. She wasn't a child, Dershowitz said after a hearing in Manhattan federal court, adding that she has testified she wasn't underage when Epstein began trafficking her for sex. She changes her facts to fit the law, Dershowitz says. She has a long record of lying about prominent people. Man, see, this is what I mean about Dershowitz, and this is why I'm glad she sued him for defamation. Every single time you turn around, this man is dragging her name through the mud. Roberts' attorney did not specify when they would file the Child Victims Act claims in an amended lawsuit. Her legal team plans to dig into Dershowitz's representation of Epstein around the time he negotiated a sweetheart plea deal in 2008. Under the agreement, Epstein avoided serious jail time for his alleged international sex trafficking scheme and remained welcome in high society, especially in New York. They sure love to have him around in New York. They welcomed him with open arms. We read it in that other article. The people, obviously, they didn't go on record. The other high crust members of society, they don't care that Jeffrey Epstein was trafficking young girls. They do not care one single bit. Oh, they'll make pretend that they're woke. They'll make pretend that they care. But if they really did, folks, if they really did, would they still be accepting of Jeffrey Epstein? Would they still have him at their parties? Would they still want to be around him? You can say whatever you want, but it's your actions that dictate who you truly are. And their actions, well, their actions dictate that they did not care one single iota that they were giving credibility to this sex offender. If Mr. Dershowitz was involved with Mr. Epstein in the activities alleged, his motivations to negotiate the plea deal that has become so controversial will be relevant, Cooper said. And I've said that as well. I said, how is this not a conflict of interest? I mean, Dershowitz is wrapped up in this deep, and all of a sudden he's in charge of the legal team that's building a non-prosecution plea for numerous people, himself included. How is that even right? How is that fair? Our justice system is so decimated at this point. There are so many ways for guys like Dershowitz to skirt around the edges and then get to where he wants to go without any care of collateral damage, because the means always justifies the ends with these sick people. Dershowitz, meanwhile, will dig into the legal tactics used by Roberts' famous attorney, David Boies. Dershowitz's legal team claimed that a recent New York Times article on a mystery man claiming to have access to surveillance footage from Epstein's many mansions backed up the law professor's claim he is the victim of a conspiracy orchestrated by Boies. And like I said when we read that article at first, I said, do not fall for this nonsense. Do not fall for it. And what do you know? The next day, Dershowitz was using that as an alibi, as an excuse, as a defense. And I said it. I said that there's something funny about this, and I would not be surprised if Dershowitz was the one who initiated that guy to be involved in all of this, who put him up to it. I wouldn't be surprised one bit. Do I have any evidence of that? No. But we know that Dershowitz and his team hired private investigators to dig through the trash of the police that were investigating Jeffrey Epstein. So they were conducting an investigation on the investigators when they first went after Jeffrey Epstein. Think about that for a minute, folks, and think about how disturbing that is. Judge Loretta Preska booted Boies from the defamation case in October, ruling that he can no longer serve as Roberts' attorney because he would be a key witness at trial. So that's when she brought on Chuck Cooper. And I think that it was a bad move by Loretta Preska. I am not a fan of her judicial style. If you go back and read some of her other cases, she is not very... she seems to be one of these judges that just does not get it. She just does not get it. And Virginia Roberts, to deal with what she has had to deal with, the full-on assault by people like Alan Dershowitz on a regular basis, does it get more brave than this young lady? I mean, honestly, all kidding aside, she knew that she was going to face scrutiny, scorn, all sorts of defamation, libel, slander, and she stood up and she said no more. She stood up and she said, I will no longer be silent. I will not be your victim any longer. And what it does is it gave a voice to all of these other girls. All of these other girls that have come forward, all of these Jane Does, all of these girls that are suing have found their voice because of people like Virginia Roberts and Sarah Ransom and all of these other women who stepped forward when it wasn't easy, when this wasn't a popular thing to do, when they were doing it with great risk to themselves and their own well-being. We all know that Ghislaine Maxwell threatened these girls. We all know that she was a very, very intimidating woman with her power and the people she knew and the way that she carried herself. We all know that. And we all know that Alan Dershowitz is a lot more involved in this case than he is letting on, folks. He wasn't just an innocent bystander. He was on the plane. He was on the island. He was at the residences. So let's get real, okay? Let's get real about Alan Dershowitz, and let's start looking at Alan Dershowitz, just like Bill Clinton needs to be looked at. Let's take a look at all of these guys. And if they're innocent, don't you think they'd want to talk to prosecution? Don't you think they would come forward and talk to the attorneys for these girls? Don't you think they would want to clear their name? What are they so scared of? Your boy's dead. Your boy Jeffrey Epstein's dead. Spill the beans. But they can't, because they were caught up in the blackmail scheme, because there's evidence that they were involved in this whole entire blackmail scheme. So they can't come forward. They're caught. But they're not going to be given any rest. They're not going to be given any solace, because at the end of the day, we all know what they did. So the train is coming, boys. The train is coming down the tunnel, and you see the little dot of light right now, and you really have nowhere left to go. The public is not letting go of this case, Alan Dershowitz. You're not going to get off this time. You're not going to be able to litigate yourself out of it. You're going to have to stand tall. You're going to have to answer questions. And at the end of the day, we will see who is telling the truth and who is the liar. I have a sneaking suspicion that Alan Dershowitz is not going to like the results of that. All right, folks, if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. And if you would like to help support the show, you can click on the GoFundMe link in the description box.